just to get out of here. Let's go ahead and call this board finance committee for May 4th to order. And we don't have anybody participating via Zoom, so we can dispense with all that. Move right into the Pledge of Allegiance, please. We all stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, roll call, please.
Trustee Aguilar.
Here.
Trustee Davis.
Here.
Trustee Garrett.
Here.
Quorum is present.
All right, no virtual, no exemptions to the Brown Act. Does anybody know who Brown Act is?
Yeah, that was actually went to district.
Yeah, changes order of business. Okay, moving on. Public comments. Anybody here from the public? Nope, you lost that opportunity. All right, moving into the consent agenda.
Wait a minute, my fingers are burning.
That is 3.1, 3.1 is approve actions, 3.2 to 3.5, 3.2 is the meetings of September 8th, 3.3 is the meetings of November 3rd, and 3.4 is approve the meeting minutes of December 1st.
All right, I'm going to approve all of those minutes.
And then we have 3.5, which is minutes of February 2nd. Okay, so we have a motion from Trustee Davis. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Yeah, I can't. So that would be correct. Thank you for the second, Trustee Aguilar. Any further questions, discussions, hearing or seeing none? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carried. We'll move into 4.1, excess liability coverage. We have representatives here from Self, JPA, and ASCIP, who are each individually going to present on their excess liability coverage options. So I think we'll do Self first, since they're in the queue.
Excellent. Thank you, Rashawn. So for the other two board members that don't sit on our insurance JPA, Trustee Garrett's kind of apprised as to how this operates. And hopefully I didn't look at your presentation, won't cover all of that, but we contract with ASCIP to assist us in running a JPA, which includes Merced Community College District and State Center Community College District. And the three of us pull together our resources as it relates to workers' comp, as it relates to property and liability, other types of coverages that we have. And we utilize ASCIP for the first $5 million of coverage. And for the last forever years, have worked with Self on that 5 million up to 50 million threshold. And so that's the area that we're having a conversation about. So we have Lewis Gormley from Self here, Schools Excess Liability Fund, who is a JPA in the state of California. And she's going to introduce us to Self and what they do and how we've partnered with them over the years.
So we have two of them. One of them is the main one up to 5, and then we have a secondary one.
Getting to the brass tacks here, ASCIP has said, you know what, we'd like to play in that field of the 5 million to 50 million. And so it could be that we no longer utilize the services of Self for that threshold. Schools Excess Liability Fund. And so we'll let Lois go through her presentation, hopefully shed a lot more light on what they do and how they work for us.
All right.
Standing, sitting, however you want.
Stand, I'm short, so. Is there a clicker?
You'd like to, or you can just let me
go to the next slide. Like Trevor said, just to give you a background on Self, we are a joint powers authority. We were formed by schools in the 1980s following a nationwide insurance crisis, actually. It was really hard to either get coverage, or if you could get coverage, it would cost you $1 million for $1 million in coverage. So a bunch of school districts and some college districts got together and said, why don't we start our own pools? So that's what they did with Self. That was 40 years ago in 1986. You guys have been a member of Self since our inception. We first started offering coverage March 1 of 86. You guys joined 7 of 86. And this is just some information. We're 100% member owned. We're member operated. The board is all made up of all the districts and members across the state. Staff is, and we are all employees of Self. So we work for you. We don't work for a broker or anything like that. And then this past year, 25-26, we had 2.5 million California students that we covered, and that includes both the FTES and the ADA for K-12. And then this is just kind of some background with Yosemite. Like I said, you were a founding member of Self. You joined 7-1 of 86. You attached with us at 5 million, and then the next 50 million in your coverage limits is with us. Contributions, we calculate, it's a real simple process. It's your FTES times the rate that the board sets, and that's your contribution for the year. So your total FTES for 25-26 was 16,203. We get that from the chancellor's office, times the rate, which was 1675 this current year. So your total premium was 271,400 and some change. And that's for the full 50 in limits. And there's no limits on that. I mean, if you were to have multiple losses within the year and different occurrences, different circumstances, those would have the full limit offering available to you. And that goes for every member itself. And then board representation, we've had Trevor with us since March of 2025. Prior to that, we had Susan Yeager for about a year, and Teresa Scott was on our board for many, many years. And she was a great contributor, as is Trevor, to the work that we do and to the board meetings and the committees there. And then this is our rate structure for 26-27. So K-12, they're paying $34.25 per ADA for next year. You guys will still stay at the $16.75 per year or per FTES. And the reason that is the community colleges really don't have the kind of losses. Your loss history is better than K-12. So the board years ago decided they were going to kind of use a classification modifier. There's K-12 and there's CCBs, and it's kind of weighted. So K-12 plays more because they have more of the losses. And granted, we have more K-12 members than we do CCBs, but you guys, we're not really seeing a lot of the losses with you. What we see with you guys is maybe EPL cases, things like that. And we've had, I think, a few transpo issues over the years, but the lion's share of the losses are coming from the K-12 because they're the lion's share of the 2.5 million that we insure. And then for next year, like I said, your rate will not change. It would be 1675. Your total FTES from the chancellor's office was 17,151. So that would bring you up to 287. Again, the rate didn't change, but your contribution changes because your FTES went up. If the district decides that you do want to stay with Self, you have submitted a resolution to withdraw. So the way our governing documents are built, we don't have like preliminary withdrawal. If you send in the resolution, we count that as you are planning to withdraw as of July 1. You can rescind it. Your board would just have to pass a resolution to rescind the first resolution. And then that would go to our board for consideration at their last meeting of the year. So we have a deadline to get those in. It's May 22nd. Then that will go onto the board agenda. And if the board were to approve the return of the district, then you would just continue your coverage uninterrupted.
I'll have a timeline issue with that, but we'll worry about that later.
And we're obviously, we'd be willing to work with you on that. So, and then Trevor had also asked us to address the 8218 issue and the funding. Are you all familiar with 8218?
Antonio definitely isn't. Don was a superintendent at a K-12, so he should know a little bit more about that. But.
Okay. So background on that, this law passed January 1, it went into effect January 1, 2020, signed by the governor in 2019. And it did several things. One of the things it did was it opened up a 3-year revival. So that meant that people could file a claim from any point in the past. They could come forward now and file a claim for childhood sexual assault. So as you can imagine, we were flooded with claims. It also, once that 3-year window closed, and that started January 1, 2020, and it went to December 31, 2022. Once that window closed, they also changed the statute of limitations for filing these claims. So previously you had until age 26 to file a claim. Now you had up until age 40 to file a claim. So you had 14 additional years to discover your injury and come forward and file a claim. And then they also deleted entirely the requirement of filing a government tort claim, which can be problematic because that helps us know what's out there and what's on the horizon. So as a response to that, what the board did is they had to go back and assess. So the law took effect January 1, 2020. And by the time we got to March, we already had 12 or 13 claims coming in. It just kind of spiraled after that. And it was like a bit of a roller coaster. And if you go to the next slide, we can show you the number of claims that have come in since AB 218. So you'll see by 6/30 of 2020, we already had 71 claims and 123 plaintiffs within those claims.
So these are not claims that occurred in the 2020 year. Some of these claims went back.
We now have claims back as far as our inception in 1986.
And you should,
Heard of districts where they've gotten claims back into the 50s, 60s, 70s, because that 3-year window, there was no statute. You could do it. You could file a claim from any point in the past. And you can imagine if you file something like that from, say, 1962, no one's around, no one's alive. The records have probably been destroyed. They make it very hard to kind of, it makes it very hard to administer a claim like that and to put up a defense for a district. So, clearly the plaintiffs' bar felt they hit the jackpot here. They were beating the bushes looking for victims of these types of incidents. So you can see June 30, 2020, we had 71 claims. By then June 30 the next year, we had 143, and so on and so on. The window closed June 30 of 2022. But the issue with the claims there, you could still, so if you're filing something with the court, as long as you did it before December 31, 2022, it was accepted. That doesn't mean it made it to us yet. So we had kind of a flood of claims coming in right after that had closed. And you can see where that ticked up about 130 to June 30 of 2023. And then that additional 14 years in the statute kicked in.
Are these just claims for self, or is it statewide, or is it?
These are just for self.
are these mostly K-12?
Yes. The lion's share of these are K-12. We do have a handful of CCD cases, but again, not many, because you guys didn't have the youth on your campus back then. Now, going forward, it's looking a little different, right? Because you've got your dual enrollment, concurrent, you've got, kids coming onto campus for other activities. But we had some childcare centers back in the day and some child development programs that were going on. And so we did have some cases out of that. So it's starting to level out. I know it's relative. It does seem to be getting better as far as the number of new claims coming in. However, you'll see the plaintiffs there jumped from 699 to 838 in 6 months. And that's the plaintiffs bar beating the bushes looking for victims. We've got a perpetrator at X school, and then they go out social media, Facebook, Instagram, what have you, and they kind of
Well, also you guys know you're in it, but keep in mind also a lot of this is transnational criminal syndicates are involved in this. Some major gangs down in LA County are behind this. LA Unified has a total liability right now of how much?
Was it a 4 billion?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But, there's been kind of a shift, right? I mean, when I was in school in the 80s, these types of incidents, you didn't really hear about them. And if you did, it was very hush-hush. People didn't want to file claims. They were embarrassed. They were shamed. The victims sometimes got attacked. And with the Me Too and all of that went on during kind of pre-COVID and COVID, a lot of that has changed. And now victims are it's assumed you believe them, and they're supported as they should be. We don't disagree with that, but it creates, kind of this rush of people coming to file claims. And because of the way the law was written, it also changed the phrase childhood sexual abuse to childhood sexual assault, which seems minor, but it opened up very broadly what type of claim could be filed within that. So there are some of these cases where it's the most egregious behavior you can imagine. And then there are cases where, you know, someone says he touched my shoulder or he leered at me. So we are seeing those cases come through as well. And what they're doing when they're looking for victims, they're trying to bring those cases together with the more egregious cases and kind of bump up the numbers. So all of this is kind of a long way of saying we've been billing you retroactively for the claims that have been filed as a result of AB 218. Because as Trevor mentioned, these are claims that happened in older years. So 86, 87, 90, 92. Different times, different standards, but it goes to court and you're being held to today's standards by the juries. So what that did was those older years in liability, you could pretty much retire a year after about 10 years. You could say nothing else has come in, we can just let that go. And then the board gave dividends back because we're member owned. The money that you put in is pooled. And then if there's leftover money sitting in a year, so equity in a year, we would give that back to the members based on your kind of proportionate share. So what this did is a lot of those years had zero balances. And now they were in a deficit. So the board had to figure out a way to collect for that. So what they did is they created the Revive Liability Funding Plan. And it is based on the way our governing documents are written. Just like we can give back dividends, we can also assess if there are liabilities in years where we don't have the funds to pay for the plans. So what they did was they billed everyone based on your participation in those historic years, your proportional share. So whatever contribution you paid in that historic year, your assessment bill is based on your percentage of what everybody paid in that old year. And then it's, you know, based on the assessment at the time. So we've had 4 assessments so far. The total we've assessed is the $589.2 million. That's the total we've assessed since 2020. It's been broken up into 4 assessments. This last one was designed to cover 2 years. The board wanted to give people some kind of budgeting stability. So they tried to look at the actuarial and the kind of the flow of claims and where things were heading and tried to gauge that to cover 2 fiscal years. So people had the opportunity to either pay that in full upfront and get a little discount, or you could pay in the 25-26 year and then the 27 or 26-27. So each March, the board comes together, looks at the actuarial and decides, is there a need for more funding? This March, because of the way they did assessment 4, it was decided no. At this time, we have the funding. We can manage what's going on right now. And you'll see that the green bar is just a little bit above the blue bar, which is the current liabilities. So we're good for now. So that means the board did not declare a 5th assessment at their March meeting. So if you paid in full, and I believe you guys did, you would not have a bill for 26-27. If another assessment is declared, it would likely be billed in the 27-28. And again, the board looks at that every March, so they would send out kind of budget guidance for you, giving you a heads up, usually end of March, early April, so you can get that into your budgets. But, you know, long story short, we had no money in those older years, or if we did have money, it quickly got eaten up by the number of claims that were coming in. So they had to go back and collect. But on the bright side, that means you're never uninsured. Because we did have some people that, you know, like their primary coverage, they went back to the insurance company that had their first million or something. And that company was out of business. And they had long since, you know, closed out the books. State Fund was like, nah, we're not helping you. So they had to pay for that out of their general fund until they hit the excess. And then this is just kind of what I went over about how the billing worked last year. You're paid in full. So what you'll get is a statement this summer that says you're paid in full, you have a 0 balance. And then, yeah, again, every March we'll take a look at that. Any questions?
What are you hearing from when you go to the underwriters? Are they getting nervous about what's going on in California?
Oh, they're very nervous about California. Yeah, we are on the list of litigation hellholes. We were number one a few years back, and I think LA County itself made number one just recently. We have seen a vast reduction in the number of reinsurance companies who are willing to do business in California. And it's just because of the litigation climate here. We have a good core group that we've worked with for a long time, and we've been able to bring in new markets, largely because of our size. And we have a history of being return buyers. And that's something they look at is the consistency. And we continue to go back to the markets. We work well with them. Our claims team does, calls with them all the time to go over claims. So hopefully they're not surprised by anything. It can happen, but we try our best to make sure that doesn't happen so that they're not, looking at us. But yeah, it's getting harder and harder to fill the tower that we have. You just
See that? So as a trustee, that's my fear is at some point you're going to get to that tipping point and we're going to have to start paying more for that risk premium because we're in California and we're going to be left with, pay it or not.
Yeah.
And you brought up a good point now that we have dual enrollment and we've got more and more of a footprint, i.e. exposure in the K-12 arena. Is that going to sort of put more of a spotlight on certain districts? Because we're getting a lot of FTEs right now from dual enrollment.
It absolutely will. And as Trevor will tell you, last week I was at the ACPO conference with a panel talking about the risk that is coming into the campuses, the increased risk by dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, and kind of some of the things you guys need to do to prepare for that. We're not seeing the claims from you now yet, but it's going to happen. So if you can get in front of it, get policies and procedures in place, make sure you're doing all the training you can do, all of that's going to help you.
But is that something that at some point SELF is going to say, hey, we're going to come up with a new formula because you've got this higher risk and we're going to attach you sort of a risk assessment into your cost? Is that something that could be a potential down the road?
I would say the board could change the way they calculate contribution. They don't seem inclined at this point. I talked to Trevor about that. He's on the finance.
I'm an alternate, so.
They don't seem inclined to do that at this time. We did.
Unless we start seeing claims coming from that part, then things might change at that point.
Yeah, as I mentioned, you guys, they look at the K-12 versus the CCD. So you kind of get a weighted premium. The markets don't look at that differential.
Right.
They just see education or public entity, and everybody just kind of like we all pay for law enforcement liability as well. Not as much because we don't really have a lot of police departments in schools and colleges, but we are overall when the reinsurance, when they set their rates, we're paying for a piece of that. Everybody does. What we do is we make that differential because your claims show us right now you're a very good risk for us. So that is why the board has your rate at about half what the K-12 is paying. Could that change in the future as the claims start coming in? Absolutely.
But when we have our dual enrollment classes, many of them are taught by the high school professor, taught on the high school location. So if something were to happen in that class environment, would that be a K-12 issue or would that be our issue?
It could be both.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's probably something the courts would.
If the attorney is smart, they will go after both.
Because they're looking for deep pockets, so they're going to go.
Well, thank you. I ask you to maybe stick around just in case there are questions.
It's nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. That's why LA Unified's going out for a bond because they don't have,
Now they're paid by the state.
they do.
Right.
All right,
Turn it
well,
over to you.
Great.
So Rashawn is with ASKIP and ASKIP is Alliance for.
That's
I'll let
cool.
you-
well, good afternoon, Rashawn Correa, General Manager for Alliance of Schools for Cooperative Insurance Programs, ASKIP. And we're your joint powers authority for general liability, for property, and for workers' compensation. And we've been a partner with you for 15 years, going on 16, since 2010. The district joined ASKIP through the VIP JPA and then is a member of ASKIP. And then all of our members actually are members of SELF, which you just met with Lois. So we've had a 40-year partnership with SELF. We have about 103 members in our property and liability program, 53 members in our workers' comp program, and we do offer health benefits as well. And so with that, we have 7 community colleges that we rate separately from our K-12 and charter schools. So we understand the risk is different at the community college level. And so we rate our community colleges much differently on a property, liability, and workers' compensation, particularly when it comes to child and sexual assault. Your rate is about a third the rate of K-12s because we know the risk is different. So as your joint powers authority, we really are in the mission of preventing bad things from happening. And when they do, try to get you back in operations as quickly as possible. So we provide risk management services and we provide the claims management services. So why excess liability? And why are we going away from self? And I'm sure that's your question. This is the first year we're actually looking at excess liability. As I mentioned, we've been a partner with SELF for the last 40 years. All of our members are members of SELF through us. And so that was the partnership. There's only 2 excess liability JPAs in the state that provide that. Over the last 2 years, we've had a difference in kind of our organizational values. And we think it's in the best interest of our members to go out and procure our own excess liability. We're not in competition with SELF. We're just providing this for our members only. So it's not to draw in other members or other business throughout the state. This excess liability coverage is just for our members. So we provide the first $5 million for you, and then SELF provides the $50 million in excess of our 5. So you have a total coverage of $55 million for liability. So the $5 million, you're already with us. Where the difference,
Push it. Is that per claim or is that aggregate? Is that,
it's per occurrence.
okay.
Yeah. So for liability, there's no aggregate. It's however many claims. And over the years, we've had obviously worked with the district on many claims, and we've always tried to be transparent and try to work with you, collaborating with you and SELF on resolution. So we want to do what's in the best interest of the district, from a financial perspective, as well as for the entire pool. As a public nonprofit JPA, just as a public agency, just like you, there's no profit incentives or motives for shareholders. Everything that is in excess of claims and all the administration costs go back to our members. And we do that in workers' comp, and we've been providing those to you. So with the liability, excess liability, there's been a change in the management at SELF, which don't really align with us anymore, particularly on the claims management piece. We've had disputes on coverage. We've had SELF actually hire their own attorneys to co-counsel with us on our claims. That's your claims as members. And so when it is a co-counsel type situation, it's different than just monitoring. It's actually getting involved in the claim, and especially in trial. we've had coverage gaps where our board has said, let's split the difference. We will step up to the plate, and Self's board has not made those decisions. So we feel that, you know, given also some of the memorandum of coverage changes, particularly a couple of clauses that may leave districts bare on coverage should Self take an adverse position. We feel it's in the best interest for us to go procure our own excess insurance. So that way you have one MOC, a coverage document. You have one JPA you're working with on the claims administration. We administer your claims now. We have 17 claims folks that help with your general liability, childhood sexual assault, auto liability types of claims. So we manage your claims. Self is really should be excess. You know, at the excess level, it should be, you know, very minimal claims that go to that level. It's the catastrophic types of claims. And they shouldn't be in our working layer, if you will, for those claims that are within the ASCIP limit, if you will.
Just so I understand it, so a claim that was going to be under the $5 million cap, I'll call it.
Sure.
They're jumping in and getting in the sandbox right there and saying, we want to be involved.
Especially if there's a claim that
Could
could
potentially.
go into their layer.
So they're trying to make sure it doesn't get to them.
Yes, or they try to get involved because we do notify Self on any claim that could potentially go up to past that 5 million in limit. We've always had that understanding. We've always collaborated with them. We say, hey, this one looks big, but we've always tried to look out for their interests as well as our members' interests. When we settle claims or we go to trial, we want to keep that cost down for everyone's benefit. We don't, yeah.
So if you want to keep the cost below the 5 million and they do, what's the problem?
Well, sometimes when they're interfering in those claims, then it causes confusion, particularly if you go to trial and you have two co-counsels. They know what our limits are. It's up to the 55 million. So if you have us and Self at the table, they're going to try to maximize on that award.
I get it. But if you just view there's only 5 million, they cannot.
That's right.
But if they, I mean, they should know these. Why would they not know that
I
it's?
see the issue being where maybe Self is going to say, no, you really need to settle this.
That's right.
Give them all 5 million because then Self doesn't have to worry because the 5 million's coming out.
I get
ASCIP
that.
might say, if we take this to court, we think it's a $500,000 claim. But if we're wrong and we lose, it becomes 20 million. And
No, I understand that, but also I'm sure the other attorneys, like you're saying, knows that the other company's there and they could go all the way to 55 million. So, I mean, they have to know this too. That's their business, right? So
It could potentially, it starts getting confusing and there's mixing of the two.
and before it wasn't like that. Any
No.
claims, it was just you, and then if it went after that, then they got involved.
That's right. And so we would collaborate with them very closely. We were very transparent. We would share numbers. They would share their reserves with us. Since they have a new director of litigation there, they're going around our claims team, working with our attorneys directly or telling our attorneys they need to settle. And so it's no longer a collaborative environment. And the drawback on that is for the member. We don't want to be in a situation, we're looking out for your interests. We don't want it to adversely affect you. And so we weren't in the business of going for excess liability, but given a couple of these adverse claim issues, our board decided, well, we should go out and evaluate the market. Is it even feasible?
Yeah, I mean, who else? If not Self, then who?
There's a for-profit organization that has excess, which their model is completely different than ours. But Self is in line in a sense that they're a nonprofit JPA and a public JPA just like us. And so we went out and we were very humbled by the fact that we started this process in November. We figured there might be 5 districts, 10 districts at most that might want to evaluate the market with us. We had 36 in a matter of months that, just like yourselves, took a board resolution to evaluate. We've been working with our brokers. We went out to the markets to try to secure this 50 million tower, if you will. And so Friday was our deadline, and we are moving forward. We have all the carriers in place to provide the coverage. In this week, by Friday, we have a board meeting and the price should be secured. Now, keep in mind, this is 36 members of our 103. This is a new line of business for us and also for the markets. They're taking a chance on us because we're a new commodity, if you will, for them. And so the goal is to get all of our members to join into our excess liability. That will provide more competitive pricing moving forward. And so they understand that.
The 36 members, can you tell us which ones are colleges and which ones are K-12?
Absolutely. So 6 of the 7 colleges have actually given their notice for withdrawal. And then the rest are K-12s. And then I believe we have 2 charter schools.
So seven colleges like that, would the pricing be similar to self?
That's what we're.
Differentiate the K-12 with the colleges?
Well, absolutely. You'll still have the different rates for community colleges versus K-12s. That's just how we structure it.
How competitor are you with, or do you know?
We will find out. We're going to try to make it as competitive as we can. Now, the benefit is you're with one JPA. You have one memorandum of coverage that's going to provide the coverage for you. You have one single claims team that you're working with. You're not in a situation where you'll be in an adverse situation with 2 JPAs. That's the benefit here. I don't have the pricing available to say, look, we're going to be as competitive. The structure we put in place with the reinsurers is by far more competitive than what Self is offering in terms of our coverage. Okay, so we are moving forward with this, and I know that we really appreciate the confidence that the 36 members, within a month to take a board resolution to their boards and the trust in us. And we want to do what's best in your interest. This isn't something that ASCIP is benefiting financially from, but it's a way for us to provide coverage.
And what does Self say? They'll say, no, our lawyers actually help make better deals and save the district's money. I mean, what's Self arguing? I mean, what is it? If she was sitting across from you and you went into your reasoning, and we said, okay, now your turn, but what do you think they might say?
Well, they probably will say that. However, we've been in situations where we went to arbitration with Self in the last 2 years, and we've actually had obviously judgment on our behalf in those situations. And we have 2 cases that were clearly
They dug their heels in through arbitration.
That's right. And so our general counsel went and we went through arbitration and we prevailed on those. And so the other thing is we've been asking, we are 40% of Self. We're bigger than all of the other individual members in Self. And we're able to take a higher retention. That 5 million, we've been asking for 10 years to take it to 7 to 10 to 15. So that way they don't need to get into our working layer. There's enough for us to maintain our own without going to their level. Remember, excess should be catastrophic. And so they've been telling us no every year for the last 10 years. And so they want the premium at the lower level. And we've been having that retention for the last 20 years. It's no longer feasible. 5 million is not that much when it comes to these, large claims. And we're big enough to take a 10, even 20 million retention, but they're not willing to do it. So to your point, we are trying to look out for our members and what in the best interest without them being in our working layer.
You painted, that helped paint a clearer picture. If the 5 million can go to 10, then we just need less of the excess liability, so they get less premium. And that's really the bulk. That's what it's about.
Well, and so we asked again this year before we even addressed it with our board. And we even said, look, if you're able to do this year, we might work that into an option. And we were told that they weren't willing to look at it this year, that they'll look at it next year. Well, we need to move on this. And, we were humbled by the fact that the members said, go out and we'll join you. It may be a situation where, we're going to try to get as best competitive pricing, and it might be multiple years before we gain experience in the marketplace, the confidence of reinsurers. And we know this because we did this on the property side. In the property side, 2019 was a really hard market, and we had to go to London and to try to secure property coverage. The first couple of years, it wasn't as competitive, and we subsidized some of that. This year, we got a renewal that's far better than other JPAs because we've been going there and meeting with our underwriters every year, telling our story, telling all the things you all are doing as members to help, risk manage, if you will. And so those stories make a difference. And that's the same thing we've been doing with the liability carriers. We met in person with over 20 liability carriers, telling us why we're doing this. Some of those carriers are on the SELF program, and we've been indirect clients of theirs through SELF, so they understand us. This way, they can work with us directly. They work with our claims teams, and so they understand it. And they said, yeah, we're willing to write you this year. So this is, I'm happy to take any other questions. I know this is, uncharted territory for all of us.
I wanted to have the two present and maybe just have a quick 5-minute conversation before we move on to the next item. But do you have any more questions for Rashawn? I'll just.
No, I have questions for you guys.
Yeah, I'll Rashawn, if you go out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say goodbye to you and Lois before we're done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good explanation to the questions, so.
I know this is a little different, like asking them to come and go, but I felt it better not to talk in front of.
So, other than yourself, who of you four deal more with this liability thing? You?
It's me.
No? I don't know.
It's me and it's these two.
Okay.
So my thought is,
Do you have any word for my question?
okay, but
Obviously, you having questions, and that's why you brought both on here. Okay, so explain the reasoning behind it.
board, as a group, years and years and years ago, elected to join a joint powers authority. So this is not a Trevor Stewart action. This has been a board of
Talking about
trustees.
the first one.
Both joined ASCIP, and even before that, years in 1986 for.
With other, okay.
To join the self board. So we did do a board resolution back in December that says we're evaluating pulling our membership from self. So we have just a few days in the next month to make our determination.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
See?
So
That's interesting.
they are both great. And I have observed and sat through these board meetings where ASCIP is saying, this isn't the right decision that you're making as a self board. As I sit on this self board, you've got all these K-12s that are not a part of ASCIP, and they're just thinking to themselves, oh, that's going to increase my premium if we benefit ASCIP. And I think ASCIP's mentality is, well, we want to benefit all of our members equally, not just one or two. He did point out that 36 gave this letter. but many between now and next month might rescind that letter. And so they might only get 10 or 12 districts that go with them in year one. I'm not too concerned about that. They will be able to build over years to get enough people. My
Different is, Trevor, isn't there still only cover that first 5 million A skip and you still need to go to South, or they're going to be able to take the whole?
No, they'll be able to take the whole thing. So what's interesting is,
Okay, I got a quick question on that. Because he was talking about going to somebody else, so they still, are
they go
they?
to London, as in the insurance markets of London, the insurance markets, the Bahamas.
So my question is, so are they still be kind of the same thing? They're gonna have, they're gonna take the first 5 and then whoever they go with is gonna take the rest? Or are they gonna move the way they say and take the first 10 and then the rest?
It most likely will stay at the 5 plus 50 in the full tower. What's
But I
They
thought
still
that
need
that
to
was kind
catch
of a
it. So
problem.
basically, right now, what they're trying to do is say, hey, this is a new service, so why don't you all sign up with us? So they take about 10 to 12 districts, then they go to the different broker and say, hey, I have these folks in, so would you sell it to me? So essentially, we're helping them to build their business. They're not doing us any favor. With Shelf, it's already set. So they need to sell this bundle of school to say, we're moving to this way, right? Because they can't just go out and buy it.
partially correct? The idea, though, is that as ASKIP and potentially with our VIP JPA, which is us, Merced, and State Center, if the 3 of us get our insurance the same way and a claim comes up, that benefit to us grows over time, in my opinion.
What do they think?
What do the other 2 colleges think? I've been asking them and I don't know. I think State Center, if I was to decide today, I think State Center will stay with Self for next year, and I think Merced will go with ASKIP.
What do you think? You know more about this than anybody.
It's really, at this point, it's a toss up. I mean, the concern is long-term. If these claims keep going up, I think long-term there's gonna have to be bleed over at some point in our rates. Where I sit right now is the fact that, yes, ASKIP is trying to, I mean, he made a good point. When you go over the 5 million, it should be catastrophic. And what concerns me is when he says that Self doesn't want them moving their tower up, because that means Self is going to pay more when they go out to their underwriters and they go, well, yeah, we've allowed them to bring their tower up to, let's say, 10 million.
Why would they?
Or he said 15 million. Well, now you're looking at, you really are in the catastrophic reinsurance market. You're at 35 million. Where now it's 5 million and a penny up to 50. You understand what I'm going at? And so you're
To 45 or 60.
well, you'd be at 35 to 50, which means they would really be in the underwriting world of high value catastrophic.
But in theory, wouldn't they get less claims?
They would get less claims, but they'd also get less premium,
Yeah, so.
significantly less premium.
Yeah, so,
Well, let's wait and see how many school he got. If they already, can they?
We're gonna have to take board action on
we
this
gotta
quickly.
we got a very narrow window here.
Tally then from Merced, I can do that due diligence. And then Carol or whoever state with
Right.
some of this.
They don't even know what their premium was.
That's the problem, so you were.
It's a little bit the problem, but even if it's a higher premium, we saw it was only $287,000. It's not like it's gonna double and triple. It might go up a couple of percent from that. And then as they get the economies of scale, it would true up.
Yeah, it
over
could
time.
go down. I mean, given, after, a couple of years and they do an experience study and they find out that we don't have the exposure that Self has got, our rates could could go down, or they could be flat.
So if we stay
you know.
with self, then when is that due date up, when they get things going?
we have to rescind our resolution here.
So we basically have to do it next week.
Nice.
Is that what you're saying?
It would have to be at the May board meeting. We'd have
Yeah, we
to,
have to do it next
Where
week.
does Catherine, where's Catherine? She worked with A-Skip and all,
She doesn't work in this realm of it,
no.
but she just worked the benefits.
workers' comp.
Have we ever been, our district, I know you can't go all the way back to 86, but maybe it's just, have we ever been burned? Is there,
We haven't been burned, but our swimming pool did rise into the level where it exceeded the $5 million.
So that was it? Since.
That's all that I can recall. So one thing to,
so
During-
we're paying for all of this. We haven't been using it.
If we had negative experience. with stuff.
It's, you know, it's insurance, because you never want to use it, but apparently other systems have had catastrophic liabilities, which is why things come up. But if we don't go over 5 million, having A-Skip at 10, I think that would benefit us a lot.
and that could be even the recommendation that you give back to me, sitting on the self board is,
I like.
we need to allow the lower level to increase their tier.
I mean, does it matter now that they've already pulled off and are creating their own though?
It doesn't matter. What's interesting is they're going to the same firms in London. They're getting the exact same insurance. Maybe he was describing it being written a little bit different, but essentially it's the same insurance coverage.
So how are they making money? I don't think they.
They make it-
But I just,
I'm going to use air quotes. They take an indirect based on the total premiums that they're collecting. And so,
will increase.
you know, again, the one thing that I've observed in my couple of years on the self board is the frustration between A-Skip and self when it relates to some of these old claims where there was a coverage in place and then it changed.
That's the part that worries me. When he brought that up, that tells me that self is trying to keep their exposure as low as possible. Because there obviously is some worry out there with their underwriters in the amount of exposure, because they're the biggest game in town in California for K-12. And so if they're out there getting into the weeds on their 5 million and trying to get them right, Trevor, I mean, that tells me that they know there is some exposure out there with their underwriters, and their underwriters are getting nervous.
So
Which at the end of the day then results in higher premiums for all of us.
especially if Merced and other ones go, I'm almost inclined to go with Skip.
A-Skip.
A-Skip.
Mhm. I like the idea of Lena reaching out in the next week to the two chancellors, presidents, and seeing what goes on. Again, I work well with them both. We're represented well no matter what we do, but this was at a level that Trevor doesn't get to make the decision. And I felt it appropriate here. I'm sorry that it wasn't 20 minutes that we're going up on the
Well, but
hour on this.
6 districts, so let's take a look.
36 did the resolution,
Yeah.
correct?
I mean, the resolution to take a look,
Mhm.
not that they're all gonna go, but that's something out about.
So you would be comfortable taking a chance at A-Skip?
I'm comfortable with either selection.
That doesn't mean
I
anything.
know it doesn't help you. You know what's funny about my job description?
No.
My job description actually says that I'm a self board member. Now, self doesn't know that, but we have been a part of self for so long that it's actually written into my job
But
description.
if you brought those two, that means that you will be okay with going to A-Skip.
I would be okay going to
All
A-Skip.
right,
And I-
I guess that's the best you can do.
Okay.
And what, Lena,
Okay, I'll find out.
what's your take? I mean, where you?
My
Yeah.
take, honestly, as a business person, A-Skip doesn't do anything out of the goodness for us. So for them to
nobody
say, go,
does.
but that's what I'm saying. So I want to find, because we have something stable with self, and right now the claims are K to 12, not really a lot of community colleges. I have to look at and see, because California insurance is expensive. It's gonna go up. the thing I don't like is I like the fact that it's gonna go up to 10 million, so we don't have to go 5 and go up another way. But again, I want some time to do some due diligence because I really want to look into, I'm okay with going, I just feel like if you need to collect 10 or 11 school before you can go to the broker and say, I have this, now sell to me, that means you don't have something set. So that's what I'm saying, right?
They do have the rates and they'll share those with us in about a week's time.
So that's how my, like, if you're like good,
No,
like,
I think you're being cautious and,
Yeah.
they're not doing it out of the good of their heart and neither are they.
we have with them already, right? We have, unless something big drop. But the thing is that, but AidSkip doesn't have a broker that say, hey, I'll sell you. You don't worry about how many members. So AidSkip have to really collectively get all these schools, right? And we are the big schools. So yeah, I'll check with Carol and Chris and see where they're at. Yeah.
I mean, they're covering their costs. I mean, they're a public entity, JPA, so they're not a for-profit. They don't have shareholders and people that have bought them out. So yeah, they're covering their administrative overhead and et cetera, et cetera. But most of it goes right into the coverage that we're paying for. So,
So I'll ask Chris and Carol. I just like, to me, that's,
yeah.
All right.
So thank them both and, yeah.
early, I'll send it back to the board. So you guys know.
Just the reminder that rescind will be the 22nd, but the board meets next week, so we just need to have those.
So if we didn't have the information when the agenda goes out, we can do a special meeting
Just for that.
with, with a 24-hour notice.
And I'll call
So
them.
let us.
Up to date. Yeah, I'll go and I'll email the board and see where
All right.
State Center and Merced going. How's that?
So we'll move on now to 4.2 Board Finance Committee meeting dates. So in your packet, we've already had the first, next one is Monday, June 1st.
Can I talk about that for a minute? I will be in Washington DC on that date.
Okay.
I will, if I'm, actually 3, are they central or are they east? I don't know, whatever it is.
4 o'clock.
So, I would try to be remote. I know it's kind of a hassle, but if I can't if I don't think I'll be able to, I'll let you know. You'll be here for sure?
Well, nothing.
That's for sure.
This meeting would be having a quick view of the tentative budget. We will have that put together at that point.
Yeah, I think yeah, I'll be here, I think.
Auditors will be here as well.
So do we leave it on that date or do we reschedule?
Leave it. I'll just,
We'll put you on the big screen.
We have the other dates, since they're far enough out. Why don't, trustee Davis and Aguilar, look at those and until our next meeting.
like a 1 o'clock start. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. I don't know if we're too accurate on the 1 to 2 part, but usually. But why don't you guys look at those dates?
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's one.
We don't need to do, I mean, it's there now, but,
So,
for Graciela and Kim's perspective, let's look at them.
okay.
Let them email them what works, what doesn't work, if we need to make some changes or whatever. Obviously, June 1st is close. We got people coming already. So we're not going to be able to change that one, but September on forward, it gives us enough time to, modify. So take a look at it, right? Does that work?
Yeah.
And then let's put it back on the agenda for June 1st. And you guys can provide your input via email before that, and we can. Now, I'm good with whatever you guys want to come up with. I'm flexible. I mean, I can put my running shoes on and be here if I have to. So we're good.
All right.
I think what we'll do next time we go through the calendar, we'll give these to you in advance. That way we
Yeah.
have, okay?
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. So we'll move on now to our FTE update. And Mary's here.
You got 2 minutes.
Is it waiting for it to come up on the screen?
No, it's an hour.
It used to be an hour and a half.
Okay,
Okay.
You try to go quick.
So
I told them 10 minutes
you're
each.
cutting into that.
I know I am.
So, Mary, let's go, Mary,
Mary.
go.
Okay, so this report is our reported FTS for the second period 320 report that we submitted to the state chancellor's office last month in April. I ran these numbers on April 8th. That was when I got the backup for the report, and we claimed 17,600 FTES. So at this point in time, we had actual numbers for our regular summer term. Fall had a handful of estimated positive attendance hours for some sections that admissions and records were still collecting hours on. Spring term had projected positive attendance for any positive attendance courses that had not ended yet because we're still in the middle of the term. And early start summer that was projected based off the sections in the system as of that date, just a straight estimate for all of them because the term had not begun yet. So that is where we are estimated to be as of this point. And our next 320 report for P3 is due July 15th.
You know, even though it's costing them money for the insurance.
We
Okay,
get more lottery
but-
money in revenue.
So now, of the 17,600, how much of that is unfunded?
Well, we left that
Yeah.
estimate based on the P1, which was the January
Oh, okay.
timeframe, just
But-
because
That's the number that's up there.
1,000 times 5,000, it's close to $6 million that we're currently unfunded is our calculation.
6 million
6 million.
with that number.
With our P1 number, which is very similar. So we
So
will.
say that again.
So as of January, when we did our P1 reporting, and then the chancellor's office had the chance to run the revenue calculations, we were 1,011.05 FTS unfunded at around
So
50
1,000
full-time.
students were not getting any money for.
Yeah.
Over
Correct.
5 million.
And still have more demand.
So now,
So my crystal ball,
So K-12 is having a really bad time with their enrollment and we're going up because we're taking probably
But we
the
don't get-
CUS because
Yes.
all the other.
cap and stuff like that.
No, not just that, but we're taking a lot of the students
Oh.
from,
CSUC.
Yes. So what we're hopeful for as it relates to the current year state budget is that there is extra growth available, which will capture some of that. That even as the governor does his May revise in the next 2 weeks, that they can even apply more dollars to benefit us in 25.
what do you mean extra growth? From what, from taxes or from?
As you described, there is money available in the system. The K-12s aren't fully utilizing their available dollars. So the Department of Finance can do some sort of saying, well, we're going to shift it over here because they need some extra dollars. So as we close the 24-25 year, we had unfunded FTES. And then when the year ended, it got down to 40. So we ended up with $1.5 million in growth last year that we couldn't budget for because we couldn't be certain.
What
So-
was why did you estimate it at before I forget? We ended at 39.5.
It was, I can't remember, 500-600 FTS.
No,
It was,
something like
yes,
that.
it was a big number.
This came back.
So we really did benefit from it. We feel positive that the governor and Department of Finance are hearing us. And so I'm very hopeful that the unfunded amount as of June 30, 2026 is a lot lower. Will it be zero? I can't guarantee that.
so on average, when I look at this, I always look at Columbia as being around on average, 1,800 FTS. So is it correct on my part to assume that of that 1,000 FTS that we're not getting paid for, a little extra, 200 or more is probably Columbia?
I would actually estimate about 14 or 15% of the 1,000. What's funny is we have this old number in our history, 8515. And if you were to do the math on the 2107 divided by the 176, you're going to get around that 14% mark. So the number has been consistent over the years, if I can do math
And you
here.
probably know where I'm going with this, right?
But I thought they count both.
Columbia is only 12% of that total, 11.97% of 2107 divided by the full
But
17,000.
my point
Where are you going with
here is that, you know, Columbia already gets extra funds to operate. And so now we're paying additional funds to pay for that unfunded FTS.
Technically, we're not real. Each college has
I
that.
love
It's
it when people
some,
say technically not, because
Each
that usually
college-
means the fact is it's true.
each college has added a few more sections, but we are serving more students with the same number of
Fine.
faculty.
Yes, yes.
So it's,
Well, I was told when I was a little kid, it really is a Santa Claus, but okay, yeah.
this government is, I guess.
We are fighting with the same, with the whole.
We never-
you know,
Here's my concern, folks.
What's your
The
concern?
governor of California is leaving the state in a financial mess. And I'm telling you right now, my prediction is if we get a certain individual in the governor's seat, it's going to be a fiscal hawk. That debt is going to have an IOU attached to it. And that's going to come in the form of the budget.
Yeah.
So let's not kid ourselves that there's this, you know, golden road laid out before us that we're going to get. It may be one time. I mean, the governor may say, hallelujah, I'm just going to open it up and because I'm leaving in January and here we go. But next year, what's going to happen next year? We don't know. So we have to plan for the worst.
Well, I mean, sooner or later.
And as our VP of Administrative Services at MG, we still have a huge demand out there. So we have to be very mindful of the decisions that we make. You know, big picture. So,
When's the May read Friday?
Well, they say good news
Agree with
goes
that?
out on a Thursday. Bad news still goes out on a Friday. So it's not this week, it'll be next week.
any question? I mean, it's great. I mean, that's great, but you know, when over 5 million of it, you're not getting paid for. Yeah, that's super duper there, but
He needs to tell you, good job.
We get it. He's gonna say, then that's my rate.
You're the messenger. You can only talk to the
Do you
messenger.
wanna?
no, I mean, the good news is
It is.
I love these because it shows that we are serving the community. And there's still a demand out there. And when you look at, you know, as Sarah saw on Friday evening, when you look at all those faces out there, that's what we're trying to achieve. That's our goal. But we got to have the money to be able to do it. And we've got to be smart in how we do it. So, all right, enough gloom and doom. 5.2, quarterly report on the district financial condition. So we're saving paper, so it's on the back of something else here, but go for it.
So the top half is basically just the financial information that we submit to the state on the quarterly report. I don't know if we really need to look at that
Last
area.
page.
Yeah.
The last page is really what we're used to seeing, and where the summary of all our financials are as of March 31st, 2026.
Page 404.
Okay.
There you go, right there.
Thank you. So here we have our the total revenue showing 108, 141 for the year as of March 31st, which is 64% of budget. Last year we were at 64% of budget, so we don't anticipate anything different there. We do have our fund balance there of 56,000, and then our total expenditures. We can see that MJC is at 68% of their total budget, and last year they were 69%, so a little bit less than what they were in the prior year. Columbia College is at 74%, whereas last year they were 77%, but that's partially due to the $2 million transfer at the beginning of the year that skews the numbers. I have been looking at the expenditures now that we ended April, looked at the expenditures to estimate out total for the year, and Columbia College looks like they're going to be right around just under budget. So hopefully it'll be right at budget. MJC is looking to be under budget by a decent amount as well. And then Central Services similar as well, under budget. So Central Services is 67%, 68% of budget, whereas last year there was 66%. So it's less than prior year, but in total expenditures for the district, 68% of budget for through March, and last year 68% as well. So very similar to last year. I don't see any financial issues that need to be reviewed. Columbia College is the one that hoping they'll be at zero, and I've let Christina know where I see it, and we can hopefully get right into that month.
So we have a beginning balance of 56 million, and we see an ending balance of 36.
No, that's still based on budget. So we are starting to put the tentative budget together, which will come to you in June. And I say this time and time again, we'll always have unspent funds at each of the sites. We have unspent carryovers, the site-specific reserves. We don't have it dialed in yet, but we were planning on spending, or budget was a $20 million spend down. We don't think it's going to be anywhere near that. And that I have described that to the board at multiple times. I imagine that reserves will be at least at 46 million at the end of the year, and maybe even slightly higher than that.
But then that's also the board reserves.
Correct.
Yeah, which is quite a bit.
So what did the 56.9 represent?
That was the carryover from the prior year, the ending fund balance. We have 16.67%. That is required based
I
on,
follow you. So that's what so when you
Yeah.
say we think we'll be at 46 million
Yes.
at the end, so you think a $10 million spend down?
yes.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, remember, we budgeted for a $20 million spend down.
Yeah.
We only think that we're going to spend it down by 10 million. Now, why is that? Part of the reason is we do a deficit factor on our revenue, which is 2%, which is over 3 million. We have budgeted interest income. We see it there on the screen at 2 million. It's already at 2.2 million. Do we have one more quarter to go?
One more quarter.
So that likely will end up closer to 3 million. So that's $1 million over budget. On the expenditure side, again, each site is allocated their budget, all the salaries and benefits associated. We try to budget for every single expense.
I follow you. So you're kind of conservative on revenue, and you think everything that's supposed to be spent will
Yeah.
be spent, and you
Yeah.
think that would draw down about 10 million. And I'm just, the reason I bring it up is like, that's not something that's structural. This is for 25, 26.
Correct. So the budget that we presented had a lot of one-time spending in it in 25, 26. Again, be that site-specific reserves, be that some expenses
I think
over
that's appropriate.
transfers and contingencies. You see row 19, or excuse me, row 15. We've basically hit all that, and that is our transfers to Fund 41 for capital outlay. But that's what I'll be bringing to the board, maybe not at tentative, but at final budget. If our reserves end up better, which is always a wonderful thing, that then allows us that opportunity to take a chunk of that and spend it on in one-time ways, most likely towards capital improvements for the district.
I think you do a good job of conservative, because I agree with my fellow trustee. We're going to hit our rough patch pretty soon. So
They said in, was it Ed Source that made it, he wanted to end in the black? How are we going to do that?
No way.
He wanted the next governor not to have it.
And as somebody pointed out at the beginning of this meeting, you've got one school district in Southern California asking for last I heard, it was like a $2 billion bailout from the state. So where's that money coming from? You know?
Yeah, even if I use the kids what I want.
Well, that's gonna cause problems, I think, because everybody else is gonna have their hand out too. Because they're not the only K-12 district that's having problems right now.
A lot of community colleges.
A lot of them, a lot of community college districts. are- Yeah,
Well, and again, that's where I'll give this group a thanks is that we have been conservative as we budget our revenue and
Every bargain.
and as we bargain. And so, that has set us up well to have sufficient reserves, not overwhelming reserves, and to set us
Okay.
up for the future.
okay. All right, with that, there's nothing else on the agenda, so the next finance meeting, as we discussed, will be June 1st, 2026 at 1 PM back here, and probably looking at having a trustee remote attendance, so that's good. And with that, this meeting stands adjourned.